Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes were thrifty with paper. They would type drafts of poems on the backs of each other's work. They once described the process as like using wood to make furniture. Sometimes you'd only get half a chair, but sometimes you get a whole table. I think it's important to remember that there's no wasted wood when you're writing a novel. Everything you write, every description, every line of dialogue, every scene, helps you know your character and novel better. For every novel I've published, there's at least the same amount again of false starts, weird half-finished scenes, terrible endings, and whole characters who it turns out don't need to exist. Part of being a writer is making peace with the fact that not everything needs to go into the final manuscript. And that's fine. My personal writing tip is that whenever I write anything, at first I am desperate to sound like a writer. It's all light falling through the dust and crenellated leaves and trying to think of new ways of describing puddles. And then I go back through it and strip that all away and try to make it feel like life. Write too much, cut it back, pull whole scenes out, put them back, replace them with half a line of dialogue. There's no budget restriction with writing. You don't have to pay the actors for an extra day or pay for more film. The only cost is to your morale. Once you make peace with it as part of the process, you can do anything.
All we writers have are our words, and indeed, none are wasted when we're trying to tease out a story that has real meaning. When you think about it, it's pretty incredible constructing whole worlds and creating compelling characters out of nothing more than words typed on a page. Those words, those sentences, are the power tools of craft. There's a lot of trial and error involved in figuring out how to use a sentence to the greatest effect. It's definitely a process. In the beginning, you don't have to be terribly concerned about the quality of the sentences you're writing. You're mostly just trying to get it all down. There will be clunkers and a fair amount of bad writing, that's okay. But there comes a point for me, even in that first draft, when I'm thinking about how I can not only move information through those sentences in a clear way, but also give those sentences balance and rhythm, make my descriptions more vivid, create atmosphere, convey humor or heartbreak, and deliver it all in just the right tone. I do some tinkering on that front, but I don't labor over it in that first draft. However, I do keep a steady stream of notes, reminding myself to go back later to the particular words or phrases or metaphors, and those notes will be addressed in the next draft, and still more notes will be addressed in the following draft. Again, it's a process, but you're moving steadily toward the goal of good storytelling. One word, one phrase, one beautifully constructed sentence at a time.
The craft of writing takes practice. Sometimes you will hear the advice not to edit as you write your first draft, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't read back over the last thing you wrote and make some tweaks before you continue. Practice tidy writing. The leaner and more accurate your prose is now, the easier it will be to see the story emerging. And by reading and reworking yesterday's words before creating today's, you will not only get back into the story quicker, but you might even find that you are creating new connections and generating new ideas. One bit of advice I always adhere to is to be precise in your descriptions. Don't just call a tree, tell the reader what kind of tree it is. Is it an oak or a silver birch, a cherry tree or a rowan? Choose your words carefully and always remember that less is more. One or two salient words of description that will lodge in your reader's mind are far better than a whole paragraph. As for making your dialogue move the plot forward, this is good advice too, as long as it's not done in a clunky, obvious way. For example, "I know you won't tell anyone" is much more true to life than "As my best friend and confidant, Mary, I know you won't tell anyone." If it isn't already clear that the person your character is talking to is Mary, their best friend, then you haven't set things up properly. For me, this early stage of writing a novel is often one step forward, two steps back. But it's the going back and getting it right that enables me to find the best route through those metaphorical woods.
I think Amanda Reynolds, one of our fine coaches here at the Novelry, said, "Writing is like magic. It looks effortless when done well." There's a lot of truth to this because there's a lot of work to this, to making sentences, paragraphs, and stories appear effortless. At first, as writers, we have a smattering of supplies and tools and a general plan for where we're going, but then comes the hardest part, starting. Now, I can throw any number of metaphorical journeys at you here. I think we all love metaphorical journeys, especially as writers, but the most straightforward one I can think of at this moment is simply to take your first steps, get out of the way, fall down, get up, but keep going. Start with a simple sentence, right? As if you're taking notes. Some of my early sentences are prose poems in themselves. So much weight, pressure, the snow cold. I'm writing to elicit a moment of time, a place, a character within that fictional space. From there, I build, I create, I craft. The memory of this place was a weight upon her, a pressure. It surrounded her everywhere like snow falling in the cold. Words weave together, grammar goes out the window. At this point, be the craftsman, putting the story together, one step at a time.